Hello and welcome to the Tetration video series. My name's Rob and I'm here with Remi, and in this module we're going to speak through policy validation and analysis. Now Remi, in some of the other modules we've spoken about the policy life cycle, and we've gone through the discovery of policy with ADM, and then we kind of need to have a look at what happens next, what happens in between the discovery of the policy and the actual enforcement of that policy. You want to maybe just kind of touch on the life cycle around that and what we need to really make sure we cover off in this section.
Yeah, Rob, there was one point that we were sort of talking about in the video regarding ADM and so on, was it's pretty important to actually test, because the reason why people fail is not because they don't know how to do it. The reason they fail is because they can't test it before they actually do anything. Yeah. So the goal is, okay, we should be able to test something, but not break anything. And we should be able to do that multiple times, because obviously, I mean, you've been there when you configure a firewall. How often does it work first go?
Well, I think it's the fear factor that really just holds things back, right?
Exactly.
How do we know, how do we kind of prove to ourselves that the change we're about to make in the system isn't going to break stuff? Nobody wants that call at 3 a.m. to know that something's gone wrong.
Exactly. Plus, there's a second component to that, is that usually the person who decided the change is not the person who's executing the change.
Yep.
So it's like if you are on the change request and you are actually taking action, well, you can probably figure out how to kind of adapt or tailor if your change management is flexible enough, the policy. But if you're the guy who just has these are the list of ports you open, these are in Excel, this translates into these commands, paste them, your only option is rollback.
Yep. So maybe let's just kind of step through the policy that we've got to start with. And this is basically the same one that we ran through in the ADM module to actually build out our core banking app. And let's take a look at the policy as it stands today, and how do we actually do some validation around that and build that confidence to make sure that we're comfortable enough to actually go ahead and enforce it. So Banking Core Prod is our app, and again, that's the app that consists of 10 workloads. We've done the analysis, which has created the groups, the clusters that is the basis for the policy. And then we've got the services or the rules that connect them together. So consumer to provider, directional relationship for the actual policy entries.
Okay.
So if we were to just maybe take a start, what's one of the first things that we actually want to achieve here? What is it, the first level validation of the discovery that I think between us, the application guys, the various teams really want to have as validation?
What we've seen a lot is that probably the first thing you want to focus on is the groups that are on this side of the screen. So what is inside this group? Is the tag I'm using, if I'm using a tag, is that the right tag that is being matched? Am I matching any endpoints? Do those endpoints make sense?
Yep.
That's probably where we want to start. Then once we're there, and that doesn't require any kind of tech or anything around that, we're just talking about like sanity check.
Yeah.
Then we'll move to services and understanding how did we create this policy? Why is it like that?
Yep.
Because, I mean, understanding where it comes from. Is it one packet that generated the policy? Is it 1,000? Is it 1 million? That gives us an ID. Who were the actual IPs communicating in those groups? All that kind of stuff we want to check before moving to the final phase. And the final phase is, okay, let's just take this data and just pass it through the machine and tell us what would happen.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at the individual clusters, and we'll pick this one here, DB Replica 1. So a cluster that was discovered during the dependency mapping. And we can see over on the right-hand side here that we've given it a name. There's a query involved here. And again, in the ADM module, we explored how to actually take what was discovered to be able to, I did the wrong thing again, how to, let me just step back in time.
That's cool. You can demo what's wrong. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So as we saw in the ADM module, we saw how the query was assigned to the cluster. So it gives us the dynamic mapping of the policy. And then there is a set of suggested queries around that, right? So we can choose the appropriate one that is going to give us the right match going forward. We have workloads associated to the cluster. In this case, it's a single workload. It's this IP address, and we know that it's got an agent on it, so we're also reporting in the host name and the operating system amongst a whole range of other inputs.
So just one thing to clarify there, when we see this view here, is that the result of the matching of the tags that I'm seeing right now, or is that what has been discovered earlier?
This is a great question, Remi. I don't know. You tell me.
When we're looking at the queries, queries is there to actually so ADM came up with some input and it showed us some inputs.
Yep.
But actually, what we're actually looking at here is different, because that's actually okay. We chose to use a tag. So if we're using a tag, what does this tag match? This tag might not match what actually ran at the moment of ADM in that specific view. That's actually live, real data from now on. So that's the first thing you want to check, is that basically I chose a tag, fine. But now, is my tag actually correctly matching an endpoint? In this case, it does. So we're good.
Okay.
But if potentially, like if Tim had fingered something, which he does often on this one, he might have put, for example, tier equals db-replica-10 by error.
Yes.
And if he had done that, we would not match any endpoints.
Right. So our list would be empty. Okay.
And if our list was empty, then you would enforce the policy at some point, and bad things would happen.
Okay.
That's the first thing I think we want to double check here. And some of them will have one, some of them will have more, and that's really up to you.
Yeah. Okay. So we've basically performed this same sort of validation for each of the clusters. And again, the application owners will really be able to identify, yes, that's an expected grouping of workloads, and that relates to the specific tiers in my application or the application components.
Absolutely. And you can always get more details, because you remember, like, you're pulling data from other systems. So if you're to click on the IP address, for example, you can actually see the inventory data that's associated to it. So I can see provided ports and stuff like that, but especially I can click on workload.
Yes. Yep.
And that will show me all the tags. And then that's usually a good indicator, because if you're pulling data out from systems like a CMDB, for example, and you can see more of that in the external orchestrator modules, you might have things like owners, systems, you might see subnet names or things like that. And that already you can tell, okay, this environment is prod. I mean, that's been tagged as prod. That's how we intend to define it. But right now, I don't know, for maybe one of these workloads is dev.
Well, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? And we're talking about the specific clusters within the application, but the actual grouping itself. Maybe there should be 12 workloads here. Maybe there should be 8, right?
Exactly.
So we're kind of trying to find what is expected and what's unexpected, and be able to then remediate that and actually make sure it aligns correctly with the application boundaries.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And what we're doing now is, again, sanity checking at this point. I mean, if we're missing something now, we can still catch it later.
Yes. Yep.
But hopefully we catch everything now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's in this first pass, often it is the things will stand out that just don't appear right. And what we're really going through here is the process of how to follow that bouncing ball and really prove those things. So if things don't look right, let's find out why, and really work out how to evolve beyond that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay. So
does that look right to you?
Well, we know we have our different clusters, and let's just assume we've kind of stepped through each of those and done a first pass to validate. And it looks
You're
right.
thinking Tim did his job.
I'm thinking Tim did his job right. So we've got 10 workloads to play with, and we've, again, for each of those, we've got a service or set of services to be able to. That's actually the policy entry between this consumer and provider group. So again, over on the right-hand side here, we see the service ports. And here we've got the ability to add services if we think there's things that needed to be added into that group. We could delete services. It's a chance to actually modify the policy, but taking what was discovered, we're expecting TCP port 5000 here. How do we prove that or understand what's behind that?
That makes sense. How did we generate this output? Well, I guess if you have a magic button, there's always everything is magic in situation. So you click the magic button and then
make it work. So I guess to explain what's underpinning the policy entry is a set of conversations. So the conversations are the aggregate of all of the flows that we've analysed over the period of time for the ADM, roll it up into a set of conversations. And if we click the View Conversations button, of course, we then get to see the specific IP to IP conversations, so IP, protocol and port, that are members of the appropriate groups in our policy. So just because a group talks to another group, a group consists of multiple IPs, and we want to understand the individual communications that take place within the group.
And that makes sense because, again, we choose to move to tags for dynamicity. So that actually enables us to know, in the contrary of the previous view, which was showing the actual matching of the inventory now, that actually shows you the exact real communication at the moment it happened. So now, I mean, well, look, those IPs seem okay. I mean, I don't see anything wrong. They're all talking to the same guy. It's always 47. It is replica 1.
We know there's only one IP in that group.
So it looks good.
We've got, reasonably high byte count, so we know that these are, relatively sustained flows, and we've got a confidence factor in this case of very high. What if we wanted to go even beyond the conversations to see more detail?
I mean, you could always go and search for flows if you wanted to. There's kind of two things. It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking, for example, you might want to look at which process has actually started the flow, which process goes in direction of the flows. So that could be one of the areas you might want to go into flow search to see, okay, well, were those communications all originated by the same process? They might not, from whatever. It could be a good example is containers. Containers spin up and down, but they're all using port 443 or port 80. So you don't know which one was behind. So if there's like 6 processes different running behind one single IP, and that's the IP that we actually discovered, well, that would be a problem. So we want to look at that, which would not happen if you have external integrations as per the external integration chapter. But let's imagine you didn't do it. That's the kind of behavior you would see.
Okay. And so to get there, given that we've kind of followed this path from a policy entry to the specific conversations, again, there's a magic button that will take us to a filtered view showing all of the flows over the period of time to just see the full detail, full resolution of what took place there.
Sounds good.
Okay, so that is, I guess, they're the conversations that have really justified that policy entry. At this point, let's just take a look at the enforcement status of this policy.
Did you enforce?
No.
Oh, I hope so, because we didn't check the policy. Let's see.
Oh yeah. Well,
is the policy enforced? Tell us.
Let's just have a look, and the answer is no. Right. So we're still.
We're not fired today.
We're still in the testing phase of this policy, right? So we're in the analysis and validate. So nobody's pressed the button yet, or planning to press the button at this point.
I appreciate that.
All right. Good.
So does that means that nothing is going to the software sensor right now, right?
Well, if you notice the text at the top of the page here, so we're saying for this application, the enforcement is disabled. So for this scope and the workspace associated to the scope, the enforcement has not commenced.
Okay.
However, it is possible that there could be policy enforced at higher layers in the scope tree, in which case there would be rules enforced on the workloads, again, provided that they have enforcement enabled and the enforcement agent installed on them.
Okay. So right now, if I'm the owner of this application, I haven't triggered anything from an enforcement standpoint.
Correct.
But maybe InfoSec has set some rules for me that I have to adhere to.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
There's different ways that we can actually start on the enforcement journey. We can start at the application. We could also start with a sort of common set of InfoSec rules as an example, and just kind of go through that process of actually having rules deployed to the workloads and test that and validate it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Great. So we don't want to enforce, right?
We're not ready to enforce yet because we haven't actually done the analysis, right? We've just kind of done a really first pass of looking at the policy output and just checked the clusters and the basic policy entries. So we haven't actually done any sort of forward testing of that policy. And that's where we then step into policy analysis.
And just to clarify, is that a mandatory step? So if I'm a cowboy and I decide to go and I hit enforce, will the system block me?
No, you can go
Okay,
ahead
good.
if you're confident, or if you again, in this kind of scenario, in a lab, if we want to actually just go from doing a discovery and enforcing that, you can do that.
Okay.
Certainly in a production context, we
Might want to
recommend
think through
that you really want to make sure the policy is right. And again, it comes back to how much data actually went into that ADM. Did you just deploy the agents yesterday and you've got a few hours of data? Or is it a week or a month or even greater?
Okay.
Right? All of that feeds into the confidence level you have in the policy. But certainly, policy analysis gives us the ability to actually test the policy before we then go ahead and enforce it.
Oh, great. So basically, all options are open. I can go and click on policy analysis if I want to, or I can just go to enforcement, hit enforce, and up to me to decide.
You decide, yes.
That's cool.
Yep. So here we actually see, so I clicked on policy analysis here. And again, this is a tab that's only available, as with enforcement, when this particular workspace is set to primary.
Ah, okay.
So
That's
it can
good
only
to
be
know.
one primary in control of the workspace and that scope.
So if I don't see policy analysis, if I don't see enforcement tab, the two options would be one, primary is not enabled, or two, I don't have permissions.
That's correct,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's pretty easy to troubleshoot. If it's not blue, it means basically my permissions are wrong.
That's right. And that's also
Like
something
that.
in the list of workloads. You can, for instance, just show me all the primary workspaces, and you can control your view based
Awesome.
on that. Okay. But here we have the analysis page. And what you can see here is that currently live policy analysis is disabled. We haven't actually kicked that off yet. But that's something that we can do to actually basically say that the discovered policy, we're ready to take that and create effectively a published policy that we want to actively enforce.
Okay.
Okay, should we do that?
Show me the button.
Okay. Start analysis. Why are we doing this? Because we're running the video series.
I would put something more clear, like for example, we're checking Teams work, but I mean, that's your call. So why just to this view and this specific box there?
Yep.
Would you use that in the context? Like typically, would the name or description be a good place to put change request ID or stuff like that if you have it?
Yeah. So every time, so what we're doing when we're either analysing a policy or we're enforcing a policy, we're creating a record. So we're giving Tetration a full audit trail to be able to understand the flow of policy change, the actions that we're taken, who performed those and why.
Okay.
So this does give us the means to put that detail into here, so we've got a form of tracking behind that.
Sounds good. I can put anything I want, right?
You can put anything you want in there. Yeah. So for now, we'll kick that off, and we're going to commence analysis. Now, what you'll notice down in the main graph here is that we actually have now a flag that's there. That is actually now telling us that we have initiated, at this particular point in time, active policy analysis for this application. And what the blue line is telling us is, per the colour coding here, that these are all permitted flows. And if we wanted to see the details of those flows, again, the details are available below the actual graph here. So if you scroll down, you'll actually see each of the actual flow entries that we're tracking here. If we were to remove the permitted flows, this is where we see what is non-compliant, right? And we're going to explore this a little bit later, because at the moment you can see it's all zeros. Everything is permitted, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to generate some escaped traffic flows that are going to, we'll be able to see here.
So a question, I'm just looking at that, and this view shows me, first of all, I don't think it's 5 a.m. here, right, or 6 a.m.?
No, we've converted that to Australian time, yeah.
So just to clarify, why is it going down to 0? Is it just because the data is not currently processed because we just enforced the policy? Is that the idea?
That sounds like a great explanation to me, Remi.
So it doesn't mean I've killed my systems, right?
No. We've not killed our system. And basically, as time progresses, that will continue to catch up, right? So there's just that tail towards, I guess, the current time, and I don't know what that is in the time of the system here. But yes, so there's always just a little change
What's
it.
like, I think it's something like 3 minutes or something like that is the usual delay we see?
Yeah. So it's just small number of minutes that will basically be the time for the flows to get processed and to appear in this page here.
So for like roughly within 3 minutes, like you see this kind of graph showing down, and that's because we are pretty much zoomed in as well on a time zone.
That's
on
right.
a specific time period. There's nothing to worry about. Just means basically wait a bit.
Correct.
So be patient. In short, is that what it means?
Yeah, it does. But of course, up here we've got the time series selector here, so we can choose the period of time we want to view. We can also choose a custom time period if we wanted. So that's our way of just refreshing. We might look at the last hour, the last day. You choose what's relevant. Now,
and if I want to refresh that page, if I'm like very anxious and I want to refresh, I can click on the dot as well, right? And that will just bring me to the current time.
Yep. So I need to look at my screen here, and that will just bring us up. And of course,
it's
as
gone.
we see, it's now kind of expanded out of view, and we've got a nice clean tail there.
Perfect.
Yep.
So that looks good to me. And that's it. So basically, if I zoom in and I see a line going down.
Yep.
Nothing to worry about.
Nothing to worry about.
Don't call the emergency or anything. It's okay. Just go wait for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Hit either you want to go to the latest data, which is basically the dot.
Mm-hmm.
Change your window, and that's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds straightforward so far.
All right. So one of the policy entries that we were looking at there was basically traffic. Let's just have a quick flick back to the policies. Traffic to and from DB replica 1. Okay. Now what we're going to do at this point is we kind of want to actually be able to analyse traffic that's not just the permitted traffic flows. Now there's a couple of ways we can go about creating non-compliant flows. One of those would be to trigger some new traffic flows in the environment, right, outside of policy. The other way we can do that is by actually adjusting the policy to take some permits or allow flows out of the policy, but those flows are still occurring in the environment, right? So suddenly, upon us analysing that latest policy change, if we were to delete the policy entry, they would go from permitted to escaped, being non-compliant, but still appearing on the network. They're still taking place.
Okay, I see. So policy says they should be gone, but they are there.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So escaped is bad.
Well, escaped is certainly
if
something.
It's enforced.
Escape, yeah, which we're not yet.
Which we're not enforced.
So we're still analysing the policy. We're not in the escaped mode yet. So at this point, what we can do is to select a given SIP policy entry. Yeah. And in this case, we're just going to delete
the one like the database. Go on.
Delete the point, right?
Who needs a replica anyway? Go on.
So we're not enforcing this policy, so it's actually not going to impact our application. Now,
just a question actually, as you're saying that, if I was in enforcement, would making this change right now, clicking yes, would trigger any action?
No.
Okay, so I'm actually perfectly safe.
Again, we've got the ability to modify. Everything is versioned. And it's only when you activate that version that something happens with the policy. And you activate the version either by analysing it or enforcing it. So we can change the policy in many ways without actually activating that.
I see. So here where I see version 2, that's my workspace version. And then when we were in the policy analysis, the P was actually the policy version.
That's right.
And they can be different.
They can be different, and you've also got different policy versions between the analysed version and the enforced version.
Oh, okay.
Because you can analyse a version that's not necessarily being enforced.
So I could have a workspace v2, a policy analyzed, which would be P2, for example, and I could have a policy enforced, which would be P1.
That's right.
Yep. And all that would happily live, let's say, together to some extent, at least in the environment.
And that allows for that life cycle to take place, right? We still want the ability to change policy, test that policy before we go ahead and activate it for enforcement. So we've got that life cycle approach, and the means to be able to roll back to see the previous versions, to be able to compare previous versions, and potentially, if anything was to go bad, to be able to roll back.
Okay, and if I was to enforce rollback controls, I could also give someone access only to this view
Yep.
And he could make changes as he wants, just like you did now,
That's correct,
but not do anything else.
Yes, that's right.
That's really nice. So you can actually empower some owners to access their application. Would that sound fair?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And I think that is actually a real strength, the ability to distribute capability where it's appropriate based on specific set of controls.
I see. I remember when we started, you said that you mentioned about using and sharing this data with the application owners because, I mean, they know their app the best there. So would actually that be the good approach to kind of give them a role to access the platform and let them come in and check?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
Because
makes sense.
again, it's all about empowerment, and if they understand with the policy and can help in this validation approach and getting it right, then everybody is building their confidence to the point where when it does come time to enforce, we're all thumbs up, ready to go. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's not a sort of us and them sort of scenario, right? Everybody's got visibility and buy-in and some level of control for how that goes forward.
Okay.
So, Remi, I clicked the delete button next to this TCP service and it's come up with a question for me. So it's come up and asked, should I create an exclusion filter when I do this?
Too many choices, Rob. Too many choices. I'm lost.
Yeah. So the good thing about this is I've got the choice of now determining if I'm just, in this case, doing some testing and I just want to delete 5,000, I want to see what goes on, or if I want TCP 5000 gone for good, as in, please don't discover it again for me. And that's what an exclusion filter does.
Okay, so if you're saying that, you're basically asking it, like, forget about it forever.
It's really the opposite of the approval. So if I've got something that I know is good, I'll hit the thumbs up and I'll give it the approval.
Yeah.
For something that I know is actually, it just shouldn't be there and I want it gone from my policy, if you don't create an exclusion filter, the next time you do ADM, you'll likely discover that policy again, and then you've got to clean it up again. So this gives us the means to say, look, I know that this shouldn't exist in my environment, and I'd like to create a filter so that a subsequent ADM run does not rediscover that flow.
I see. So you clean up the environment and you delete some of them because they're like taken care of in some other shape or form.
Yep.
And then to make sure ADM never looks at it again, you just tick that box.
Yes. The exclusion filters are something that you can always go back to and you can see what's excluded, you can change and delete those if you want, but most of the time it's really just to eliminate noise, things that you just wish to be gone and ultimately to be remediated from the environment.
So would you recommend people click on create an exclusion filter, or would you say more, look, I mean, if you're trying to hide a flow completely, you should more go and fix it rather than just hide it?
Fixing is the best thing because what we're still going to see, regardless of the choice here, is there will be an outcome in the policy analysis.
Okay.
So that's the thing. If you just say, look, just forget about it in policy, I don't want to see it in policy, but the traffic flows are still there, they're going to be non-compliant flows. You'll have visibility of them, and the goal of that is to be able to highlight what you actually want to then go and clean up. To go and remediate those flows because they shouldn't exist in the environment. You've said it's out of policy. If you've got the control over them, you should try and stop them from occurring in the first place.
Oh, it's good to know because that means that if I don't see something in ADM and ADM hasn't picked it up, there's a pretty high chance someone has ticked this box, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Let's not tick it then.
No.
Actually, maybe we should take it and let Tim figure out what's going on in the next video.
So let's not for now. We'll give Tim a break. So, I clicked no to the policy. Let's delete the policy, but without the exclusion filter.
Sounds good.
Yes.
So that's the default, right? With the box and tick.
The box was not ticked, which means it's just gone. If we were to rerun ADM, it would come back again.
Perfect.
Yep. Now, so this line has effectively become inactive at this point. Now, if that was the only service there, I could potentially just delete the whole policy line. It's currently providing no value to us.
Okay.
Yep. We'll just leave it there for now and step back to policy analysis.
So again, at this point, still nothing has changed.
Still nothing
from a
has
policy
changed.
analysis side or enforcement if I was using enforcement.
So we could go back to policy analysis and again sort of go to the latest time period. Nothing's changed, right? We have not actually activated the policy change. It's still a place for us to safely modify and test changes and so on. Yep.
Sounds good.
But when we're ready, we go and analyse the latest policies.
Okay. I'm ready.
You ready? Good. So in this case, we deleted port 5000, which was the
MySQL.
MySQL.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So let's just now activate the latest policy. And what you'll notice there is at
P2.
this point in time, we now have a P2. So the P2 is what we've just activated, and there will now be in the audit trail here both a P1 and a P2, which we could go and compare. Contrast what the changes were, what was the action that was taken, and by whom.
Can you show us the audit trail quickly?
Sure.
I know there's a completely different module on that if you want more details, but okay. So that's where we see your message, right?
Yes.
Deleted port 5000, okay.
And I did that at 6:52 a.m. We're up very early this morning, Remi. Straight into it.
Super early, yeah.
Okay, and then obviously our previous change with P1. And the specific versions, the published versions, the P versions are listed here.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty
So
nice.
we will see P1 and P2.
I can see it's Europe.
In this case.
No
yeah.
hiding.
No, there's no hiding there. Okay.
Good.
So that's our audit trail, keeping track of exactly what everybody's been up to. And at this point...
So now we have the policy. We triggered the publishing of the policy on that. But I guess same thing applies, like roughly a few minutes before it picks up the new policy change from simulation standpoint.
Yep, that's right. So what we can see here of all of the flows that we've been analysing and assessing, you can actually look at that through different lenses based on what you might be looking for. And you can sort of focus on host names, addresses, so IP addresses, ports, protocols. But also as you step down this list here, you also start to see things like processes as well. So just as we know that was TCP port 5000, we also might want to highlight, well, what processes are we actually seeing there that are actually communicating, both on the consumer and the provider side. Now, that's something that comes from the agent. The agent is reporting the process details along with the flow information.
I see. But now, I mean, like you're sort of cheating. You know what is 5000. How can I filter out? Because here I see DNS, for example. I see UDP and so on. Can I filter out just port 5000?
Yeah. So, I mean, so you can either type in the filter directly into the box, or you can just say, show me the top ports. And in this case, we've got 5000 in our list.
Awesome.
So here's certainly a contributor on the provider side. So these are, if we were to add this to our filter, and let's just do that now. So we just click on the list and say add filter to drill down.
Okay.
And provider port 5000 is now in our list.
Okay.
And if we filter the flows, it'll tell us what that actually looks like. And now we might want to see, well, what are the addresses that are communicating? And to your point earlier, what are the processes that are actually making that up?
Very sweet.
Okay. And now what we see,
as we've
updated,
orange, right?
We see some orange. So if we take away permitted, all of a sudden that is all we see. In this case, so where escaped are the flows that policy says should not be there, but the flows exist. They're reported as escaped flows.
Okay.
And if we click on the actual dot point there, we'll actually see those flows down below here. So these, and they're all flagged with escaped.
Okay, I see. So now this view is 6 hours, right? If I want to zoom in a bit, can you just show me the last hour?
Yes, I can.
Because I mean, right now it seems like there's nothing in a massive spike at the end.
So let's just basically we click the time range here and just say 1 hour.
Okay.
And that's going to give us a little bit more detail there and a little bit higher resolution, right? So we can see how that looks.
And my filter is applied to this view, right? So the port 5000 I'm only seeing in this graph flows related to port 5000.
That's exactly right. And also the results that are presented here only relate to what is presented in the view. So based on how we filter it depends on what the top things will be presented over here. So maybe we've got these escaped flows, so let's just see what we find out about those.
More details, great.
Now, the interesting thing is, as we kind of step down through the details, we can see this was a flow that was marked as escaped. We see the source and destinations involved. We see the TCP flags, but it's really the policy analysis around that. Trying to understand why in policy was this specifically flagged. So if we're trying to work that out, what do we want to do about this? This is going to help discover that.
So, okay, tell me more, because now I see a button. There's a button, we have to click on it, right? So it's my quick policy analysis.
And we should, right? Because remember, so what it's telling us here is the resulting rule that caused this to be marked as escaped was a deny catch-all. So that is the ultimate rule that resulted in this situation. Okay. Yes. However, we've talked about hierarchical policy, and policy applied at different layers in the hierarchy to give us a combined result. So if we click on Quick Policy Analysis, that will take us to this page, which is pre-filled in with the specifics of this particular flow, and we can then ask the system to tell us what are the policy rules that relate to this communication.
Okay.
Right? What are the matching policies, so that we can actually see, particularly as that policy is potentially applied across multiple layers, how did this come about?
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So I should read that if I understand correctly. So policy decision is pretty clear. So we said no. And that's the result of policy decision.
Yes.
And it says that there's two outbound policy that would have been matched, two catch-alls. So we executed the catch-all, which was the closest to the workload, which was banking core prod, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that seems pretty easy.
Yeah.
And if I had more, I would see the whole list? Or?
That's right. If you had multiple layers, and again, we'll have a module specifically on policy hierarchy and ordering, where we'll break this down into a bit more detail, provide a bit more clarity around how that applies across multiple layers. But the other interesting part here is you see the outbound policies and the inbound policies. And that, again, is going to help us determine the appropriate policy decision at the end.
Okay. That's pretty nice. I mean, when I was working in ops, I would have killed for this view. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So you're telling me that I can, and there I chose the one in the UI, but I could change the ports and the IPs, I guess. Yeah,
we can enter in any values into this just to get an overall policy decision for any flow.
So that's really nice. So I can come and I can sit somewhere, change the IP addresses, and validate if that specific flow with that specific set of ports in a policy would actually match the rules I've created. So if I'm doing, I don't know, let's say I'm creating a rule after some intrusion problem, anything you want in there, I could say, okay, let's take this rule and let's just apply it and let's see, did I get my rule right? And all that, I'm still not touching anything in the network. So no change in permit IP any permit IP any catch-all, permit IP any log or anything like that. Zero change.
Yep.
And I can do that as much as I want.
You can do that as much as you like. So you can basically assess the policy for any particular combination in the platform and use that to get a very good understanding of that end-to-end picture.
So far you're telling me that centrally from one UI, I can get all my clusters or my groups of servers that are there, assign them tags, check if the tags are actually matching the inventory, go back and understand why this policy made it to there, how many packets we're looking at, details if really needed in the environment. I can check my ports, and from my ports I can go down to simulation. All that without still touching any production workload, without any enforcement, nothing across the environment. And I can even go and continue testing that across time periods even, like now for the next 6 days, the next 6 weeks.
Yes, we can test this on an ongoing basis. And if we start to see, again, some change, some non-compliant flows, we can adjust the policy and then test again. Like we can go through the policy update life cycle to make sure that, as we go through multiple iterations, we're more and more confident we're reaching that end goal of being, 100% confident that we're not going to impact the application when we go to enforce that policy.
And so that's pretty cool. If I go back to policy now and say you re-add the port 5000 now,
Yep.
Again, it would stay in that state until I reanalyze the policies, right?
Exactly. Yep. No firewall rules are touched in the process. We're just simply analysing the state based on what Tetration is assessing against the flows that it's receiving.
That's really nice. So I have within every single workspace, I basically have, every primary workspace, I actually have 3 sort of sub-workspace. A draft folder, which is my policies.
Mm-hmm.
I have my testing, which is my policy analysis.
Yep.
And I have my actual enforced, which is enforcement.
That is correct. Yep. All in the workspace. So the workspace is your toolkit for actually going through the entire policy evolution from first discovery through to enforcement and beyond.
Very nice. So I can come in, I can basically sit at my desk, put my legs up, and go from one single page and just flag through tabs and set all my policy, test it, validate it,
yep.
And then even go to enforcement should I wish to.
That is correct. Yep. Not bad.
Not bad. I'll give
all
you
right.
that.
So if we now just sort of bring this back, we'll kind of take us up back to the latest state. All that's left to do is to potentially remediate that. So again, we're just looking at that TCP port 5000 traffic, which is now fully being marked as escaped. If we take that filter out, we'll see that is a small undercurrent of escaped flows against the broadly set of permitted flows. So if we're looking at all flows in the environment, but again, it's very quickly to just highlight or pinpoint the non-compliant flows and then take the appropriate action. In this case, either we need to stop that traffic from being in our environment, or maybe it's legitimate, we should go back and add the rule in to permit that traffic.
It seems to me also a super powerful tool, even just during a maintenance window, because there, I mean, no one can argue on when the problem started. I mean, you look at the graph, I mean, the spike came literally right after the policy got enforced.
Yes.
So there's no hiding. And if I hover here, is there any details on the P2?
Oh, yes. Yep. So
I actually have there, if I had my change request ID, I could have the change request ID when it happened exactly on top of the platform.
Yep. And also we got the full sort of audit trail of who did that, when and how.
So no bouncing back through systems and going back to SRM, check who had access and check the TACACs and so on and whatever else and so on.
That's correct. Yep.
Very nice. Very nice. For the 3M maintenance window, I see that very useful.
Yeah. And look, the same model applies to any change in the application. So something happens. There is an event, a change. Maybe there's an update to the application. Something happens. This is the place to go. We'll see suddenly there was an initiated change in the traffic flows. We'll be able to see the flow activity up to that point and beyond that point. Gives us a really good record of exactly what happened that might have caused that, and then a very quick path to actually resolve any issues that might come out of that.
Great.
All right, is there anything else you want to see here?
I honestly struggle to find anything else to add.
Okay, so the last really piece beyond where we've gotten to in terms of validating and and analysing the policy is to then step through into enforcement. And again, we would definitely want to tidy up this traffic, make sure we've got a nice clean run. We understand every non-compliant flow there and remediate those as necessary. And when we're ready, it's time to enforce. Now, that will be something we'll cover in the enforcement module, so stay tuned for that, and we'll come back and we'll talk in more depth about the enforcement and how that works.
Awesome.
All right. So that concludes this module on policy validation and analysis. For more detail, please go to cisco.com/go/tetration. Thank you.